Hi, and welcome to Cloudasta. In this video, you will learn how to migrate your organization's files from Microsoft SharePoint Online directly into Google Shared Drives using the new data migration tool available in admin.google.com. Before we start, let's take a detailed look at what data this tool will and won't copy from SharePoint to Google Shared Drives. It's important to know that the tool only reads and copies your data. It never deletes or modifies your original files in SharePoint. First, the basics. All of your folders and files from your SharePoint document libraries are migrated. This includes your subsites, which are migrated automatically. OneNote notebooks are converted into regular folders in your Google Shared Drive. Now let's talk about permissions. Specific user and group permissions on your files and folders are migrated. For example, a user with writer access in SharePoint will get editor permissions in Google Drive. As you can see here, every access has an equivalent in Google Drive. If you've shared files with external users, those permissions will be carried over, and they will receive an email notification that a new file has been shared with them. Understanding what is not included is just as critical for a smooth migration. The tool does not migrate SharePoint lists or web pages. It is focused only on the files within your document libraries. Any files or folders with blocked download policies set in SharePoint will be skipped. It also does not migrate files and folders that were created by external users. Here's an important detail. Only the latest version of files are migrated. Previous version history will not be carried over. Also, permissions for internal users and groups that aren't present in your identity map aren't migrated. Check Google's documentation for the latest details on supported and unsupported data. You can find a direct link in the video description. So, to complete your full migration, you'll need to handle your other data types. Check out our other videos on the channel to learn how to migrate your personal files from OneDrive and your email and calendars from Exchange. Before you begin, let's cover the prerequisites. You'll need Super Administrator access in Google Workspace and Global Administrator access in your Microsoft account. Also, you must have already created the destination shared drives in your Google Workspace account. The tool won't create them automatically. Therefore, you will need to create one shared drive for each SharePoint site you plan to migrate. Now, let's look at our starting point. Here in SharePoint, we have a typical site with document libraries, folders, and various files. Our goal is to see this entire structure and all of these files copied into a Google Shared Drive. Let's get started then. In the admin console, navigate to the data migration section and select SharePoint Online. The first step is to sign in to Microsoft with an admin account. The SharePoint migration works by mapping your SharePoint sites to your Google Shared Drives using a CSV file. The best practice is to first download the sample CSV file to get the correct template. This file has three important columns. First, the source SharePoint URL is the address of the site you want to migrate. Second, the target drive folder ID is the unique ID of the destination shared drive. You can find this ID in the admin console by going to Manage Shared Drives, finding the drive you created, and copying the unique ID you see there. And third, the target G user is a user who has manager access to that shared drive and will become the owner of the migrated files. Next, you'll create an identity map. This is another CSV file that connects your SharePoint users and groups to your users and groups in Google Workspace. Just like before, download the sample file and fill in the source and destination emails. There are also optional settings for handling any users discovered during the migration that weren't in your identity map. For most cases, leaving the default settings is fine. Once both your CSV files are uploaded, click Start Migration. After the initial migration is complete, we strongly recommend you run a Delta migration. You do this by simply running the migration again for the same sites. The tool is smart and will only copy items that are new or were updated since the first sync finished. You can also download the migration reports at this point. Here are a few pro tips to ensure a smooth migration. First, the documentation recommends using multiple target G users in your site list CSV. This helps avoid performance issues and potential failures if you're migrating a very large number of files. Second, be careful to only include parent sites in your CSV, as subsites are migrated automatically. Including both can cause errors. Once the migration is complete, let's look at the results. As you can see, the contents of our SharePoint site are now perfectly organized inside our destination shared drive with the folder hierarchy preserved. The migration has brought your SharePoint files into Google Shared Drives. Now let's take a quick look at the compatibility. It's important to know that standard files like PDFs are not altered in any way. Here's a Word document from our SharePoint site. As you can see, when open in Google Docs, the integrity of the document is maintained, allowing your team to pick up editing right where they left off. Collaborative presentations from PowerPoint are ready for your team to edit and present using Google Slides, with text and images appearing just as they did before. And critical spreadsheets, whether they contain financial data or project plans, open directly in Google Sheets with their formulas and charts intact. While the most complex files might need a few small adjustments, the vast majority of your team's documents will be ready to go. Now, the last thing you need to know is that you can do this DIY migration and still have support from experts for free. If you haven't created a Google Workspace account yet, go to gws.cloudasta.com to get started with a free trial. And if you already have one, transfer your licenses to Cloudasta before you start the migration. That's it. This is how you migrate files from Microsoft SharePoint Online directly into Google Shared Drives using Google's data migration tool.